Welcome to the comprehensive DDD support guide. Our company has expanded and we must learn to use our newest employees to the fullest. So in this on and off series, I will explain everything you need to know to conquer the dueling world once more with capitalism. Huh? Where am I? And wait a minute, who are you guys?
Be not afraid. We are the support that you are looking for.
Wait a second. You come here to tell me telepathically that we get support. Are you kidding me?
Of course not, fellow associate. We really are the support that you are looking for.
Nah, you're capping. I don't believe you for 1 second. Like, everyone knows that DDDs are mythological creatures or historical figures, and you guys are measurement equipment. Like, what the heck?
Whoa, slow down, champ. We are your support and we come in peace, okay? But you don't have to get personal, okay? This is just how I look like. You better deal with it.
Nah, dude. I don't take anything serious from a ruler face, and like, dude, you look like a wannabe Frieza from Dragon Ball Z, and this other guy is like a microscope-headed XLR8 from Ben 10, dude.
Okay, you need to leave.
Okay, this has been only a bad dream. Thank the dimensions. Wait a minute. They are real? Oh Oh damn, I'm too late again. Okay, here are my glasses, and here's my pointer. So let's get started already. Part 1. Post-Premiere Pack 2025. What's up, fellow associates? Different Dimension Dreamer here, and right now, literally in a different dimension again. We have long left our basic combo dimension, and now we are in the new support dimension. Congratulations. And in this dimension, we look into new cards. And this time, we have 2. The first one being DD Count Surveyor and the second one being DD Scale Surveyor. So without further ado, let's look at the new cards. First off, DD Count Surveyor. Currently, this guy has already 3 nicknames, even though he's just literally 2 days old or something. First one being Microscope Head. Well, the reason is obvious, look at his head. Second one being Xenomorph, and third one being XLR8 from Ben 10. This guy not only looks funny, but he can do way too much. Let's look at his Pen effect first. So his Pen effect is super gimmicky. It's like literally a picture book DDD effect, which nobody really resolves, but only when it's like in this super niche situation. To resolve his effect, you have to meet 2 conditions. First, you have to pen summon out a DDD monster from the hand or from the face-up extra deck, which is already quite hard. And secondly, you have to target 3 monsters which must have the same attribute or the same type. And if all these conditions are met, you then can attribute 2 of these monsters, and then you push the attack of the remaining monster by the attack of the attributed monsters. You might ask yourself, well, why do I even want to resolve this? Like, this sounds very disadvantageous, you know? And I tell you, you gotta be surprised. There's a certain line that I will show you in a couple of minutes that is quite insane when you resolve it. And now to the real part. Its monster effect is insane, let me tell ya. This is not only a free body by just discarding 1 DD monster from the hand. This is a searcher, which searches any DD monster which has 0 attack or 0 defense. And well, look at the deck list. We have 4 targets. 1. Kepler, a 1-card combo starter. 2. Copernicus, one of the most awesome 2-card combo pieces. 3rd, Rage, which is an anti-hand trap line. And 4th, the new DD Scale Surveyor, which is an awesome extender. These are all very, very good options, and this makes Count super good. So our Count is basically our own Diablo Star version. Just by summoning it, you threaten your opponent to extend even further, so he has to stop you preemptively so that you don't get too much advantage, which means he forces a lot of interactions before Gilga even hits the field. This is basically our Swirl slime on steroids. And obviously, our best discard targets are our one-off bricks, meaning Necro slime, Lamia, or like a single Swirl slime. Just with Count additionally to your one-off brick, you can go full combo instantly. This is such an insane improvement from before. And here's the kicker, he's not only good going first, but going second, he's menacing too. As you might have noticed, this guy is level 8, and well, what rank 8 can we play that is very menacing to our opponent? That's right, Kali Yuga. So because of count, you can turn into Kali Yuga anytime you want now, and threaten your opponent to lock him. But not only that, because Kali Yuga is a heavy storm as well, remember that. So with count now, you always have a portable Kali Yuga button in your pocket, which is great, but like, what else can it do going second? Okay, so if you remember, just now I have told you about the pen effect, right? And now think about it, which penned DDD main monster is available right now? Exactly, it's only Abyss Ragnarok. And coincidentally, Abyss Ragnarok is the best target to pen summon while you have count as scale. So now, let's imagine we have count and scale and we pen summon Abyss Ragnarok. What happens? Well, the first thing that happens is Abyss Ragnarok will trigger its revive effect to revive a DDD in the grave. Optimal targets would be Tell or Caesar, I don't know. Now we have to analyze the opponent's field. In our example, it is a subpar Mermails end board. And here, as we can see, we don't have the same type, but we have the same attribute being water. Awesome, we can now use our count's pent effect. So what does it do? We target all 3 monsters which are in the opponent's field, and let's say we tribute everything aside from their Mermail Abyss Gaios, right? Now Abyss Gaios gains 3200 attack just because of count's effect, but in turn, both of these monsters are now tributed. Okay, remember, now we still have Ragnarok online, right? So now we can go ahead and tribute one of our revived DDDs like Tell or Caesar to get a floater, then target the Abyss Gaios and then just banish it. And it's done. We have just successfully removed 3 of our opponent's monsters, 2 by tributing and 1 by banishing. And well, yes, we had to target them, which is quite annoying because targeting might have protection, you know. But still, if they don't have target protection and they don't play around the set count scale, because who does it, we just easily removed 3 monsters without even sweating. So if you can resolve it, this pent effect might be very useful, depending on the opponent, depending on the meta of course, but still, keep that in mind. Next one is our DD Scale Surveyor, and like count, we already have some nicknames for it as well. Some call him Freezer because of his looks, others call him Ruler Face. Simply just look at his face so you understand. But don't get me wrong, this card is awesome in a super unbelievable way. His pet effect might be a bit underwhelming because it can set up to 2 scales to 0 but only in standby, which is kinda awkward. But his monster effect? Wow, this is a lot. So this guy is basically like a discount Gryphon. It can special itself when you control a pent DD monster on the field from the hand, and then it can turn its level to level 4. Yes, you've heard it right, it can turn itself to level 4. And not only that, if it gets to the face-up extra deck or it gets foolish, you can bounce one of your scales to your hand. Does that remind you of something? Well, yeah. This guy basically has 3 functions. First off, being a Gryphon, second, being a Cerberus, and third, being a Dark Contract with patent license. Fused into 1 card, mind you. 1 card. So just by existing, you can potentially remove a Rage, a Cerb, and a patent license from your regular deck core, making our deck way less brickier. Oh, and as a random side note, as you might notice, our Rule Phase is level 2, and our count is level 8, right? So if you special out level 8s and level 2s, which are dark, what comes out? Well, yeah, you could special out a Chaos Angel preemptively, but it might not be useful, but pretty cool, right? So for every jank enthusiast out there, you can play Chaos Angel now, unironically in our DDD deck. Okay, enough of that chit chat. Let's get down and dirty to the combos. And because it has been a long time, here is a simple reminder of how the field should be set when you combo. You got it? Great. So now, let's start cooking, shall we? Let's start with the updated Kepler Combo. First off, grab Kepler, then normal summon him and grab Gate. Now activate Gate. Gate now searches for Scale. Scale now special itself because I control a pen DD on my field. Now you're gonna link them both to Gilgamesh. Now Gilgamesh activates and sets Gryphon and Thomas as scales directly, and now you pen summon Scale out of the extra deck, and with that we're gonna level him up to 4. Now we're gonna activate Gryphon's effect, just like in the 1-card Gate combo. Thomas fetches him back to hand, now we can special himself, and now we go into Caesar, and after Caesar we go into Tell, and you know how it goes from then onwards. Okay, but here's another new thing. Now after we have Foolish our Tell, we can Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2, Tell, to Foolish something, Chainlink 2 to bounce back with our Scale. Basically Scale blocks our Foolish. How awesome is that? So as you can see, Scale can kinda help us with this effect to make our combos more resilient and extend our plays even further. For example with chain blocking in this case. And you will notice in the other set of combos that I've prepared for you, this pattern is repeated very often. And look at that, this is our regular field without needing Rage or Serve. Very awesome. Okay, this is our 1.5 card combo with Count. Count special itself by discarding one of our DDs, this time it's Rage. And as you can see, when the search goes through, we can now search a Kepler out of our deck. Now we can normal summon Kepler and go full combo from then onwards. Kepler searches Gate. Gate will now be activated. Gate now searches Copernicus, and because we have now 2 bodies already, we're gonna link off into Gilgamesh immediately. Gilgamesh will set Gryphon and Thomas again. Now we're gonna pen summon Copernicus. Copernicus now will Foolish our Necro Slime, and now we're gonna do the same line all over again. After specialing out Gryphon and going to Caesar, we now go into our Jingus, and after we go into a Jingus, we now go into our second Gilgamesh to trigger this combo chain. With this new Revive combo chain, we can now actually chain block our Dark Contract Search of the Swamp King so that we can make sure that our Swamp King goes through. Well, now look at that. We now have Caesar, Machinex, 2 contracts and 1 headhunt. And this can be done with Count and any DD. Now the same combo, but this time ending on Kali Yuga. Just as before, Count will special itself, Count will search for Kepler, Kepler will normal summon Kepler gets Gate. After Gate, we're gonna get Gryphon this time. With Kepler and Gryphon we now go into Gilgamesh, and with Gilgamesh we now set scales Orthros and Thomas. With Thomas we're gonna get Kepler back, and now Orthros pops Thomas and Gilgamesh. We're gonna set Kepler and then we're gonna pen summon out Thomas. We're gonna activate Thomas to special out Ragnar from the deck, and with Ragnar we go into Markinex, and with the remaining level 8s we go into Kali Yuga, and now look at that. Okay, now let's see how the Kepler Gryphon combo has changed. Okay, let me spoil you. This time the combo didn't really change at all, but our end board got even sicker because of Scale, and you can see how we're gonna utilize Scale right now. Okay, after we go into our Tell and burn ourselves, right, we're gonna detach the material to use it for a small Genghis from the grave directly, and then link off into Gilga. And with our chain blocked Foolish, we can actually Foolish our Scale safely. Because of Gryphon, Ragnar's Reborn will now be triggered, Gryphon searches Headhunt, and the Scale will bounce Orthros back to hand. The chaining resolves, and now see what happens. Because of the burn damage of Ragnarok, we can now special our Orthros. With that we go into our Siegfried. And surprise surprise, now we have an even sicker end board. Because we now end on Siegfried, Caesar, Machinex and Headhunt. But to do that, we had to burn through 3 Gilgameshes, so keep that in mind. Okay, now to the updated Kepler Gryphon combo. Basically everything that just happened in the last combo will happen in this one, with the change that we now have an additional contract in the field. As you can see, we can now link into Gilgamesh again and scale Orthros and Ragnar, pen summon out Copernicus and Gryphon, and from then onwards, you know how it goes. Remember to burn yourselves with Tell and go into your small Genghis first before linking off again, to chain block appropriately. We're gonna Foolish our Scale while reviving our Gryphon. The revive will now trigger Ragnar, and with that, we're gonna go and target our Caesar out whilst bouncing our Orthros back and getting our Headhound to hand. Because of the burn damage, we now can special out Orthros, go into our Siegfried, link off the Caesar with our third Gilgamesh into our Swamp King. Swamp King will now infuse into our second small Genghis. With that, we can overlay into our big Caesar, go into our Machinex and set Headhunt. Both of them were very greedy lines, but I just wanted to see how far we can take our updated 2-card combos. Okay, now let's see what Count and Kepler ends on. First, we're gonna normal summon Kepler. Kepler effect will search Gate. Gate will now search for Necro Slime. Now we're gonna activate Count. Count will special itself and now search for Copernicus. Afterwards we go into our first Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh will now set Gryphon and Ragnarok. We're gonna pen summon out Copper. Copper will now foolish Scale. Scale will now bounce back our Gryphon so that it specializes itself from hand again. We go into our Caesar. Afterwards we go into our small Genghis for the chain block. And now we're gonna dump our Caesar so that we can get the search off of Swamp King. We're gonna revive Gryphon yet again. Ragnar triggers reviving our Caesar, and Gryphon will search for Orthros. After Caesar has now been revived, we can now trigger our Orthros so that it specializes itself from hand. Go to our tail, burn our opponent, activate Swamp King. Swamp King will now fuse into our second small Genghis. We're gonna go in our big Caesar. Go to our Siegfried, and lastly finish off with Machinex. As you can see with the new support, we can end on an additional Gilgamesh float as well. Let's try it again. I think we can do it more efficiently. First, let's pitch Kepler. Counter effect, grab Copper. Normal summon Copper, foolish Necro. Linking off into Gilga. Okay, but this time let's set Orthros and Ragnar. There we go, pen some Copper. Now we use Ragnar to reborn our Kepler. Kepler now searches Gate, and with Gate we can now search Gryphon. There we go, Gryphon is out. Now we can overlay into Caesar and dump Caesar right away. This time using Orthros effect, saving us one Gilgamesh. Caesar will now search Swamp, and there we go. This is the basic DDD combo. Overlay into Machinex so that Genghis is triggered. Genghis reborns Gryphon. Gryphon searches for Headhunt, and now we use the 2 spare bodies for our second small Genghis. There we go, now set Headhunt, and we just used only one Gilga. Nice. So it's really possible to be efficient with our count combos. Now let's look into our similar combo, this time with Copper. Just like every other combo, let's go and special out our count. Count will search for Kepler, Kepler effects, searches for Gate, and with Gate we now grab a Gryphon. There we go. Now we use Kepler and Gryphon to go into Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh sets Orthros and Ragnar. We're gonna pen summon Gryphon out. Ragnar triggers and revives Copper. Copper will then foolish Necro, then we go into our Caesar. Of course, just like every other time, we dump in right away, but this time with Orthros again. Caesar gets a Swamp King. Now we go into our first small Genghis. There we go. Now we go into our Machinex, revive our Gryphon. With Gryphon we grab our Headhunt. And with the spare bodies, we use them for the second small Genghis. Now we go into our Caesar, then set Headhunt. And there we go, we just did a full combo with just one Gilga. Again. Okay, the funny thing is, we can do all that with Gryphon too. First things first, you should know it already by now. We start with Count, Count searches Kepler, Kepler searches Gate, and with Gate we search as Copper. There we go, now we link into Gilga. Gilga now sets Orthros and Ragnar again as scales. Now we're gonna pen some Copper. And now with that, we can trigger our Ragnar. Ragnar special sells Gryphon, and we can foolish Necro. Gryphon now searches for Headhunt. We overlay into Caesar, we dump it right away with Orthros. Caesar searches the Swamp King, and now we go into our first small Genghis. We overlay into Machinex so that we can revive our Caesar. We then overlay into Tel so that we can burn our opponent, and afterwards we're gonna use Tel's body to get our second small Genghis. Tel now foolishes Swirl for a follow-up, and now we're gonna overlay into Caesar and set Headhunt. Nice. Okay, now what about all the one-off bricks? Let's see what we can end on with Lamia in hand now. We're gonna start off with searching for Kepler again. Kepler will now search a Gate, of course. But this time instead of Gryphon, we now search for Scale. Scale can then special itself from hand. We're gonna link them off into Gilgamesh and chain block with Scale. We're gonna set Gryphon and Thomas and get our count back. And then pen summon out our Scale. Scale will turn itself into level 4 again, and then we go into our usual Gryphon line. Gryphon will then special itself, and then we go into our Caesar, and right after into our Tel. Tel will then burn the opponent. We're gonna use our second Gilga now. With Tel, we're gonna now foolish our Necro Slime. And from this point in time, it really looks like the usual DD combo. We're gonna revive our Caesar back, and now we're gonna activate Lamia's effect. And with Lamia, we can spare one of our Gilgameshes. There we go, got the Swamp King. With Swamp King, we go into our second small Genghis. I would use the Lamia. And now we go into our big Caesar and pass. There we go. Okay, now let's see what Count ends on with Necro Slime. Okay, as always, Count special itself and searches for Kepler. Kepler will then grab the Gate again. And just like with Lamia, we now search Scale with Gate. Scale will now special itself. We're gonna link both off to Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh will set Gryphon and Thomas again. Scale gets pen summon out and be level 4. We go for the Gryphon line again. Thomas fetch back Gryphon, Gryphon special itself from hand. This time, because of Scale, we don't even need to go into our small Genghis first, because we can chain block with Scale and Grave. Scale will get our Thomas back to the hand, and we have gotten Swamp King. Now we go into our small Genghis. With Genghis' revive, we're gonna revive our Gryphon. Gryphon will now fetch Headhunt. And then we're gonna use our Swamp King. We're gonna fuse off Gryphon and our count into our second small Genghis and set our Headhunt. Let's go, our basic end board without using 3 Gilgameshes. Now let's see, what about Swirl? We start off with our all-time classic again. We're gonna use count to get our Kepler. We're gonna normal summon Kepler again. Kepler normal summon will get our gate. Gate will then get our scale. Just as before, we're gonna special out scale, and with scale we go into our Gilgamesh. We set our Gryphon and Thomas. Now we're gonna pen summon our scale out, scale below level 4, and we go into our Gryphon line again. As per usual, we go into our small Caesar, but this time we go into our Tell again. We're going to activate our burn by detaching our scale. Scale will then activate in the grave so that we can bounce back our Thomas. Now we're gonna link up into our second Gilgamesh. We're gonna foolish our Necro Slime. Necro Slime will go into our small Genghis. We're gonna use the Swirl Slime to special out our Thomas. Genghis will activate and revive our Caesar from the grave. We go in our third Gilgamesh, and now we get our Swamp King. With Swamp King we can go into our second small Genghis, and then we can go into our Caesar, Machinex, and this time Kali Yuga. And with that, your opponent has to be afraid of a heavy storm as well. Okay, but what if we have hard drawn Thomas even though he's one of our major combo line pieces? Well, we're gonna start as usual again by normal summoning Kepler, Kepler effect, getting gate, and with gate, now we get Copernicus. We're gonna link them off into Gilgamesh, and with Gilgamesh we're gonna set Gryphon and Ragnarok. With this, we're gonna pan summon out Copper, and with Copper, we're gonna now foolish Scale. Scale will bounce back our Gryphon, and from then onwards, it's full combo again. Just like in the 2-card combos of the past, we now go into our Tell line, meaning burning our opponent and dumping him with our second Gilgamesh so that we get our Foolish off. Foolish Necro Slime will go into our small Genghis, go into our Machinex, then we're gonna revive our Gryphon. Now Ragnar will be triggered. We're gonna fetch Orthros from the deck so that we can special it after reviving Caesar. Here we go, and then we go into our Siegfried, but unfortunately we have to link off into our third Gilgamesh whilst wasting our first Machinex so that we can get to our Swamp King, to a small Genghis, to a big Caesar, to a Machinex. So it's not the end of the world, but resource heavy. Now let's see how the 2-card combos look with Scale in hand. We start off by normal summoning Gryphon, and then we're gonna special out our Scale, and then we go into our Gilgamesh, and Gilgamesh sets Gryphon and our Ragnarok. We're gonna pen summon both out again, and level up Scale to 4. Then we're gonna exist into Caesar and dump him immediately. We're gonna search for Gate and bounce back our Gryphon. You will see in a second why Swamp is not needed. With Gate, we now search for Swirl Slime. Now we're gonna use Swirl to fuse into our small Genghis with Gryphon. Ragnar triggers, reviving our Gryphon. Okay, here comes the fun part. We're gonna search Kepler with Gryphon, and we're gonna revive back our Caesar. We go into Tell, burning our opponent. And okay, as you can see, my plan was to fetch Swamp King, but with Kepler, because I knew Swirl was still in the grave. Convenient. And with that, we can use Kepler and Gryphon for our second small Genghis again. We're gonna go into our Caesar, then our Machinex, and that's it. That's our field. Now let's see where Orthros and Scale get us. We're gonna normal summon our Orthros and then special our Scale, link them off into Gilgamesh, and then set Gryphon and Ragnar Scales. Pen summon them both out again. Increase Scale to level 4 and go into our Caesar. Immediately dump Caesar. Search for Gate, bounce back Gryphon. Gryphon is back to hand, now we can get Gate again. Gate will get a Swirl. Swirl activates to go into our small Genghis. We overlay into our Machinex so that we can trigger the reborn of Gryphon. Gryphon now grabs Kepler. Kepler will then special itself because of Swirl. Kepler will search for Swamp King. We're gonna use Swamp King to go into our second small Genghis. Now we can trigger our Ragnarok to revive our Orthros. We go into our big Caesar, we go into our Siegfried, and that's our end board. A very good end board considering we started off with Orthros and Scale only. Okay, now what about Copper and Scale? We start off by normal summoning Copper. Copper will foolish our Necro Slime. As per usual, we're gonna special out Scale and then go immediately into our Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh will then set our Gryphon and Ragnarok. We're gonna pen summon them out again and then go into our Exist play. Now we immediately dump our Caesar, and as per usual now, we're gonna bounce back our Gryphon and get our Gate. This time we already have our small Genghis. Convenient. As per usual, with Gate we're gonna grab Swirl. Swirl activates, fusing into our second small Genghis. Genghis in turn revives our Gryphon. Ragnar triggers, reviving our Caesar. But before that we're gonna grab Orthros, chain resolves, we get damage and also specials itself from hand as well. Now we go into our Caesar, we go into our Siegfried, then we go into our Tell. Tell will burn the opponent, for good measure. And lastly, we finish it up with overlaying into Machinex. Voila! Okay, what about Kepler and Scale? Let's see. Starting off by normal summon Kepler, Kepler effect, search Gate. Gate will now search Copernicus. We're gonna special scale out, and with that we go into our Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh will then set our Gryphon and Ragnar. Then we're gonna pen summon Copernicus and our scale, Copper Foolishness Necro, and then we're gonna chain block it with scale. We go into our Caesar and dump him immediately. Okay, this time we're gonna bounce back our Gryphon and we get our Swamp King. We're gonna go into our small Genghis with Necro. We're gonna use Swamp King for our second small Genghis, but using our Gryphon in hand. Genghis will trigger, reviving our Gryphon. Ragnar triggers and Gryphon triggers to search for Orthros. Because of the damage, Orthros will special itself again. We go into our Caesar, we go into our Siegfried, then we go into our Tell. We burn the opponent for good measure again, and then we overlay with Machinex. And there you go, an 8 interruption field. This is for the people that enjoy the more classic field. We're gonna start off with Kepler and scale again. This time we fetch Gate, and with Gate we fetch our Gryphon. We use our Kepler and Gryphon to go onto our Gilga, and with Gilga we scale Orthros and Ragnar. We're gonna pen summon Gryphon, special out scale, and make it level 4. Then we go into our Caesar and link it off again. This triggers Ragnar, Caesar, and scale. Scale bounces Orthros, then we get our Swamp King from Caesar, and then we're gonna revive Caesar. With the damage we took, we can now special out Orthros again. We now overlay into a Tell, and then we're gonna burn, and then use Swamp to fuse him away. Tell now Foolishness Necro. Necro goes into a second small Genghis, and our small Genghis revives our Gryphon. Gryphon now fetches up our Headhunt, and now we go into our Caesar, and then into our Siegfried, and lastly into our Machinex, and set Headhunt. Let's go, this is our familiar board. Now let's see how to play around hand traps. We need Count and Scale, and another DD to discard. We're gonna start off with Special and Count. Count will get us Copernicus. Copernicus will Foolish or Necro Slime. We're gonna Special Scale, making it level 4, and then go into our Caesar. Now we're gonna link off into our Gilga. You search for Swamp King immediately, and then scale Copper and Ragnar. Then you have to go into your small Genghis. Afterwards you overlay into your Machinex. Genghis will revive Caesar. Afterwards you go into your Tell, burn your opponent. Activate Swamp King using Tell to go into your second small Genghis. Tell will Foolish Gryphon. Overlay into Caesar. With Ragnar's Reborn effect, you now reborn Gryphon. Gryphon will now get Orthros. And lastly, you're now gonna pen summon Orthros and go into Siegfried. This line makes an Imperm Gilga not so bad. Okay, this is another anti-hand trap line. We start off with Swirl, go into a big Genghis with our Count, get Gate with Kepler, and then reborn Count from Grave. On summon, Count will trigger and we can search our Rage. And then we special out Rage with Swirl. Rage tributes Kepler to deactivate all hand traps. Gate will get us Copernicus. We link off Rage and Count to Gilga. Gilga will then set Gryphon and Thomas, and then we can pen summon out Copernicus. Copernicus will Foolish Necro Slime, and then we're gonna go into our Gryphon line. We overlay into our Caesar, then immediately dump him. We get Swamp King. We go into our first small Genghis. With big Genghis we go into our Machinex. Small Genghis revives our Gryphon, and Gryphon now searches for a Headhunt. I use Swamp King for the second small Genghis to go to your big Caesar and set Headhunt. Shutting off all hand traps while having 6 interruptions feels quite nice. Now let's look at some very greedy lines. Let's see where Gryphon, Swirl, and Count get us. We start off with an early small Genghis, special out Count, Count searches Copper, Genghis revives Gryphon. Gryphon now searches for Orthros. We're gonna normal summon Orthros and then go into our Bright Armor, go into our Gilga with the other bodies, and set Copper and Ragnar. Pen out Copper, Orthros, and Gryphon. Copper will go ahead and Foolish Necro. We overlay into Caesar, dump him immediately for Gate, while Ragnar reborns Genghis. Gate will now get us Scale. Scale will special itself and making it level 4. Now we go into our second small Genghis. We overlay into Caesar, go into our Siegfried, trigger Scale, bounce back Ragnar, and lastly overlay into Machinex. We have now target protection, spell trap negate, special summon negates, and Machinex. And follow up with Ragnar. I will introduce you to one of the jankiest combos ever. You need Count, Scale, and Swirl. We start off with an early Genghis. We're gonna use Swirl to special Scale. Genghis will revive our Count. Count will fetch us our Copernicus. Normal summon Copernicus to Foolish Necro. Use Count and Scale for Chaos Angel. Now we go into our Gilgamesh. We're gonna scale Gryphon and Ragnar, and pen summon out Scale and Copernicus. Make Scale 4, overlay into Caesar, immediately dump him for Gate, but before that we have to bounce back Gryphon to our hand. We use Gate for Orthros, then go into our small Genghis with Necro Slime. Ragnar will trigger and revive our other small Genghis. Orthros now triggers to special itself from hand. We then go into our Caesar, then we special out Gryphon, and then we go with both into our Siegfried and over into our Machinex. Siegfried, Machinex and Caesar are now better protected because of Chaos Angel. Funny. Okay, so how do we feel about this support after all these combos? Well, in my opinion, they are very, very good. If you can tell, they offer major consistency upgrades and sometimes even enhance our board a little bit. I mean, sure, you could argue that by cutting out pattern license, some of the optimal combos turn out to be more resource heavy, because scale doesn't offer as much of recovery as pattern license. But with all honesty, I would rather draw a scale than a pattern license, because with scale it is much more likely to go into full combo than sit on a dead hand. Which is why I came to the verdict that both cards should be run in the main deck. In my opinion, you should run 3 counts and at least 1 scale. And this is how my new deck core would look like. My deck core is 1 Rage, 1 Ragnar, 3 Count, 1 Thomas, 3 Gryphon, 1 Orthros, 2 Copper, 3 Swirl, 1 Scale, 1 Necro, 1 Lamia, 3 Kepler, 3 Gate, 1 Swamp, 2 Throne, and 1 Headhunt, amounting to 28 main deck cards. My extra deck has 1 Big Genghis, 2 Small Genghis, 1 Bright Armor, 1 Siegfried, 1 Zeus, 2 Machinex, 1 Kali Yuga, 1 Caesar, 1 Tel, 1 Small Caesar, and 3 Gilgamesh. And here's an example deck list with all the non-engine that I've fitted in. And with a 28 card deck core, I could have squeezed in 16 non-engine cards. I've squeezed in 4 consistency cards and 12 hand traps. If you don't need the consistency, you can cut that out to squeeze in even more hand traps if you wanted to. And I personally prefer to play 44 cards with my DDD deck, to dilute the one-off bricks. And I've kept 3 Dark Contracts in my side deck, since the support offers more lines to fetch more contracts. Now lastly, to the deck rating. As you can see, compared to the last score, because of the new support, we have minor improvements in our consistency, and some minor improvements in our total power level. Because as you have seen in the 2-card combo videos, some of the combos ended on an additional boss monster that would have not been there, like a floating Gilgamesh or a Kali Yuga. So all in all, we did get some minor improvements for our deck, which is a win in my book. But does it make DDD meta again? Probably not, but way more fun to play, so that's nice. And maybe these 2 new cards were just the beginning of a very good support wave for us. And if that's the case, you can bet on it that I will test every single one of them. But up until then, I will wait patiently in this new dimension. See you soon, my fellow associates.